The age-old question, what is the best division template? In this guide I will be covering what are the best templates for infantry, motorized, special forces, robots and garrisons to play in HOI4 OWB Blues. And for those of you that stick around to the end of this video, I will also be going to give away some bonus tips. But first, let me go over some general information. Alright, let's start with combat width and why it is so important in designing your templates. Combat width represents how big your unit is and how many units can fight on a tile at the same time. Now, the answer to the question of what is the best combat width to use, in my experience it is 20, and my reason for saying that is this. In OWB Blues, all tiles have a fixed combat width of 80. So by having 20 with combat units, it allows a maximum of 4 units to fight on the same tile at the same time, and also allows for additional attacks by 1 extra unit, which is essentially a flanking attack to overpower your enemy. Now, the danger of not having the correct combat width is that you face the possibility of either over or understacking in battle. Now, the dangers of those are your units will not be able to fight as effectively, which could very easily lead to your defeat. Now, there's also some stats that I want to go over and some myths I want to dispel. The first one is, it used to believe that hard and soft attack were the most important combat stats to have, but this is no longer true. When Paradox released Arms Against Tyranny, they added armor to every single unit type in the game. So before you could use your soft and hard attack against your enemy, you first had to pierce their armor. So the new things you need to look out for is now piercing and breakthrough. Piercing is to break through the armor so that your soft and hard attack can actually take effect, and breakthrough allows you to attack for longer to lower the defense of your opponent. The next important stat that I believe everybody needs to have a look at is their organization. The organization is what allows your unit to fight both either on the offense or defense for longer. So the higher your organization, the longer you can fight. Now, with that general information out the way, it's time to move on to some templates, starting off with infantry templates. So infantry templates are always going to be your bread and butter of any OWB Blues game, as they will be the vast majority of what you have. So now I've got quite a few that I've made up here that I believe will cover every possibility. So let's go through them. First of all, the tribal militia. Do not use these as a combat unit ever. Reason being is that the militia has a combat width of 1.5. So by using them, you will never be able to get the magic combat width of 20, and also they are fairly useless in combat. Save them for your garrison units. Now, moving on to some proper infantry. In this example of the legionary template that you'll start with Kaiser's Legion, the combat width is 16. So whenever you start, your first objective would be to get this up to 20, and that would leave you with something like this. Simple 20 with pure infantry. This will be enough to start you off for the first year or two. Once you have progressed down your focus tree and some research, I would then suggest you move on to the intermediate template. Now, you have two options. You can either use the combined arms platoon, which will give you a nice boost to your soft, hard attack, defense, breakthrough, everything else, or you can go for individual demolitions, fire team and anti-tank. I prefer using the combined arms platoon for a few reasons. Firstly, using the individual platoons and support companies costs you a lot more equipment for very little extra bonuses to your combat stats and lowers your organization further. Additionally, because the Combined Arms Platoon uses less equipment, it is cheaper to keep them supplied, especially in your early game, and I've been doing some testing. As you can see here, as you progress up through levels, the Combined Arms Platoon alone will be enough to carry you through to the end of the game. Now, for your advanced infantry template, I would suggest keeping your Combined Arms Platoon, adding on some extra anti-tank for more piercing, and dogs. Dogs used to be useful only for garrisons, but they have received a boost to their breakthrough, which now actually makes them more effective at breakthrough than your demo teams. This kind of pure infantry template will work with everything that you can imagine: super mutants, ghouls, humans, Marlocks. This general infantry template, both either basic, intermediate, or advanced, will be able to carry you through your entire game. Now, for those nations that have a bit more industry, what I would suggest moving on to after your basic infantry is a mixed infantry intermediate, where I have replaced 4 of the infantry units with enforcers. What this does is add a nice amount of armor to your units for a very small loss in organization. Enforcers do have slightly less organization than infantry, but not too much that will lower your stuff too far. And then, as you can see, my advanced template is exactly the same as my pure infantry advanced template, just with the 4 enforcers. Now, there is a case for using pure enforcer templates. This is when you are playing a nation that has a very low special forces cap. This is the highest way, either with the intermediate or the advanced, of getting as much breakthrough and armor on your templates as a standard infantry. They can be used as probably the most effective infantry breakthrough attacking template you can get. Now, there is a difference I want to point out between using normal companies and support units. Support units lower your organization quite a bit. Your organization will be gained mainly from using the normal infantry, as they give the highest. Anything else will lower it down. But there are some support companies that are useful in specific situations. Logistics is one of them. If you're playing a nation that you cannot get air supply, or you're fighting at very long distances, such as Kaiser's Legion or the NCR, logistics will lower your supply usage quite a lot and raise your initiative. Do not be fooled by recon. Recon is best used on pure defensive units. It does not actually give any boosts to your attacking. Maintenance is a useless support company for infantry. I don't suggest you ever use them. Now, what traits would you want to give your infantry units? Well, there are quite a few. Mainly, if you want to use a lot of enforcers, Nerd Rage would be your best bet to raise your enforcer attack and speed by 10%. For infantry, Mysterious Stranger is your friend, as well as helping out the ghouls by giving more attack and defense. Gun Nut and Bloody Mess respectively will raise your fire teams and demolitions. Then if you are playing a super mutant nation, you want to look out for, where is it now? Strong back will give your super mutants an extra 10% attack. One thing I want to point out is that if you are playing a tribal nation, you must make sure you take advantage of the research bonuses you get here. This infantry training will give you good boosts to all your infantry units, and this riot control branch will do the same for your enforcers. But probably the most important one to actually ever get is anti-tank rifle mastery, which will give every unit in your army plus 25% to their piercing. That is just how important it is. Now, land doctrines for infantry. You'll be surprised at how many you can actually use. Depending on the nation and how your playstyle is, that will affect how you are playing. If you want to play a more defensive game and then take advantage once you've worn down the enemy's manpower, then trooper warfare is the way to go. If you are using a lot of infantry but want to be attacking, you may be surprised to find out that ancient tactics is the best for giving boosts to your army in all respects. If you're using a lot of enforcers, as in a pure enforcer breakthrough units, then Wasteland tactics is the way to go. Never mind the boost that it gives to militia somewhere along the way, you are looking out for all the boosts you can get to your enforcers. Now, next on the list is motorized. So I suppose the first question we need to answer is, which is better for motorized, using the motorcycles or cars, or using the trucks? Well, motorcycles are better at breakthrough and have a higher speed at a cheaper production cost, whereas trucks are better on the defense, have more armor, but that comes with a high production cost. So if you want to use your motorized units as an attacking force, then motorcycles and cars would be the way to go. If you want a bit more defensive or general purpose vehicle, then scrap trucks are the answer to your worries. Now for the templates. Now I've split it up into general purpose, breakthrough, and tanks. Let's have a look at the basic general purpose motorized unit. Full set 20 width of motorized infantry with anti-tank. Having any kind of motorized unit for your nation is going to be expensive to produce, so having the supporting company will always help and will give you a nice starting boost to your piercing and breakthrough. For an advanced version, I would swap out 2 of the motorized infantry for a motorized fire team and motorized demolitions to boost your combat stats, and to use the mobile logistics support company just to lower your supply use, as motorized can be quite heavy on supply. Then for the basic breakthrough motorized unit, I would use 3 mobile enforcers just to boost your armor and your breakthrough just a little bit, along with a support anti-tank for the piercing, so you can get through what needs to be done. The reason why I've only chosen 3 mobile enforcers is that with the advanced version, I suggest that again you add in a mobile fire team, mobile demolitions, and mobile logistics just to tie everything up nicely. Now when it comes to motorized, nothing is better than at breakthrough than your tanks, and this is my basic tank template. 3 tanks, 3 motorized, just to keep your organization above 30. Nothing else. You'll get everything you need for piercing, breakthrough, soft and hard attack, all from your tanks alone. For the advanced version, I suggest changing to a 4th tank and then keeping 2 mobile infantry. By this time in your research, your organization boosts should be higher to get your organization above 30, And again, I've added mobile anti-tank because you can never have enough piercing, as well as mobile logistics. Now, there aren't really any other support companies I would add to any kind of motorized template. The mobile maintenance will boost your reliability, but that's the only thing it really gives. Other than that, personally, I believe any kind of maintenance unit is a waste of time. If you are playing a nation with low manpower, mobile chems could be a good one to take, but anything else is not really worth it. Now, as for the best traits to give this kind of unit, you are looking at lead foot over here. This will boost any kind of motorized, so your cars, bikes, trucks, anything else like that, will increase your attack and defense by 5%, and more importantly, because they move so fast, your organization loss while moving will go down by minus 15%. Another one you might want to add on is your nerd rage, because it also raises your motorized enforcers attack and speed, as well as bloody mess and gun nut for your demolitions and fire team. When it comes to your tanks, the only trait you can really get to give you a nice boost is under your field marshal trait, so your commanding officer, and that is heavyweight, which will give your tanks plus 15% more attack and defense. Now for land doctrine, what I suggest you do is, if you are using more than a quarter of your units in a army group, you should go for mechanized warfare. This will give you a very good boost to all your vehicles and your tanks, and a nice small boost to your infantry as well. If you're using less than a quarter, so less than 5 in an army group, then I suggest sticking with one of the more infantry focused traits, as you won't really have enough tanks to make a big impact. So with that said and done, now it's time to move on to special forces. So let me start off with some special forces templates you should avoid. The first one is the Special Forces Infantry Mixed Template. Now there are some nations like the Mojave Territories that do get this as a standard. That's fine, but I suggest you avoid making these. I know it can be tempting to do something like this so you can get more elite units in your army, but effectively you are half-assing it. I would just rather do a proper special forces template, whatever type, and then have your infantry templates. Another template I suggest you avoid using is mixing your light and heavy special forces. Again, you are mix matching and defeating the purpose of what they're for, but also on top of this, you are greatly increasing the amount of equipment that you need to manufacture. So that being said and done, let's look at a basic light special forces template. Now this will cover your standard light special forces like your rangers, your ghouls, your nightkin, anything else like that. Straight 20 width with no support companies. And then when you move on to a more advanced template, I would add in anti-tank support company as well as chems. I do not suggest adding in any demolitions or fire team into this, purely because you will lower the effectiveness of having a pure special forces template, but also you don't really need it. This is I believe level 2 special forces kit that the Mojave Brotherhood have, and you can see already the stats are pretty damn good. That being said, having more piercing is always great, and the chems will help them keep their experience levels up so that they can fight more effectively in battle. Now, as for the heavy special forces, aka your power armor, your basic one, again, 20 width, pure power armor, no support companies. Your advanced one, now here I will swap out 2 of the units, one for a power armor fire team, another for power armor demolitions, and then add on some piercing and chems. This just boosts their stats quite nicely and enable you to do some real damage out there. Now, a couple of support companies you might want to add on, maybe something like dogs for a little bit of extra breakthrough, some logistics to bring down their supply use, but otherwise you don't want to add too much. You don't want to lower that organization any more than you have to. Now, looking at traits, a lot less to actually choose from here. Pain Train is the obvious choice for heavy special forces. Gives you more attack and speed, and then Sniper for your light special forces. The Nightkin gets their boost from the Night Person, and I don't believe there are any specific traits that boost the Ghoul Paratroopers, but I could be wrong there. So those are the traits. Now for your Land Doctrine. So for Land Doctrine, if you are going with power armor, then Refined Warfare all the way. Your choices really come in here at these first 2 branches. If you want to add quite a few, I'd say 3 or more support companies, then I would suggest going with Flexibility of Command, because it boosts the organization as well as some of the combat stats for those support units. If you are going for just pure fighting companies or 2 or less support companies, then Flexibility of Movement will give you more breakthrough and speed. This last branch here between Purity and Principle, I am a big fan of Principle. I think this gives the better boost, but there is something to be said about playing Purity. This is quite good if you expect to lose some territory and then get it back, but overall Principle for me is the way to go. Now for light special forces, you actually have 2 choices. Again, a split between Trooper Warfare and Agent Tactics. Both give along the lines here some boosts to your light special forces, but it all really comes down to your playstyle. Trooper Warfare more for the defensive side, waiting to take advantage, and then Agent Tactics more out for all-out attack. The one hint I might give you on which one to choose, if you have a lot of manpower, Agent Tactics, because you will burn through manpower here, where Trooper Warfare will allow you to save some of that manpower if you're running a bit low and attack later on. Now, I mentioned Behemoth and Nightkin, so let me just swap over quickly to the Troll Warren and I'll show you those templates quickly. Okay, so the Behemoths. Now, interesting about the Behemoths, they're considered basically special forces tanks. They have a combat width of 4 per unit. Basic, just go for a nice 20 width. This could actually carry you all through the game if you wanted to, because as you level them up, their stats will increase greatly. But if you want to go for a more advanced unit, then I would pop on some piercing just to make sure that you can get through whoever you come across, especially maybe some Brothers of Steel Nations, and then chems just to keep your experience loss down. Nightkin, very much the same as I said with light special forces. For a basic template, just go for a straight 20 width of Nightkin. Don't have to add anything on, and then if you're going for the advanced, add on again some anti-tank for the piercing and chems as well. The one support unit I would consider as a maybe, if you can produce enough support equipment, is adding on some dogs. This will give you a nice boost to your stats, but you just got to watch that organization quite quickly. Well, now that that's done, next is the robot templates. So just with the motorized templates, I believe it's best if I start off and help you decide which are the better ones to use, the Protectrons or the Gutsies. Well, the production cost is basically the same for both all the way along the branches. What it really comes down to is the commercial Protectrons have better defense for less breakthrough, and they are slower with more armor, whereas the Gutsies are basically the other way around. Less defense, more breakthrough, they're faster but with less armor. So it all comes down to how you want to play. The one thing I could advise is possibly at the beginning of your game use the Protectrons just to be more defensive while you're getting yourself settled, and then when you start going on the attack, swap over to the Mr. Gutsies. Now with that said and done, let's have a look at the templates. Don't have that many to show you this time. The basic robot templates I would advise you to use is a 20 width support template with the CNC attachment. This is absolutely crucial when playing as any kind of robot nation. It just gives some amazing boosts across both your base and combat stats. Really, I can't do without. And then for your more advanced one, I would suggest swapping out half of your support robots for combat robots, just to give really good boost to your combat stats. Again, CNC attachment is an absolute necessity. You will notice I have no other support companies here, and that is because the devs have designed the vast majority of robot focused nations with very low available manpower. If I had to add on a full set of support companies, my manpower requirement basically doubles, sucking a lot of manpower for frankly not major boosts. So I would suggest just keeping it the way it is. If later on in your playthrough you do get more manpower, then you can always boost your lineup with some light or heavy special forces. Again, just like my advanced templates that I showed you, 20 width with some anti-tank and some chems, and the same for power armor. Slot in your power armor fire and demo teams with some anti-tank and chems, so that will help out. You can also then start using infantry units, but I don't advise it. By that point you should have more than enough robots. Now let's have a look at what traits we have available, and there's really only one, that is your robotics expert. This affects both your support and combat robots, gives you attack and defense plus 10%. There's not much really I can think of that will really give you a nice boost, unless you want to alter your template slightly. But then the question is what land doctrine to use. Well, automated warfare obviously for robots, but then the splits. What to do with the splits? Well, the center one you can do, and it gives you additional slots for CNC robots just to boost your templates even more. But when it comes down to quantity and quality, they each have their own boosts, which give nice things. But what it really comes down to is your industry. The quantity here on both sides just really gives a fantastic boost for your factory output, whereas your quality and direct control makes their fighting stats better. That's the general summary. So again, a tip you might want to use is in the beginning of your playthrough, when your industry is a bit low, go for quantity to boost your factory output, and later on when things are going a lot better for you, move over to direct control. So with robots done, the last templates to show you are the garrison ones. Garrison templates, the templates that you will not actually ever see. Now I've got 3 options here. The first 2 probably won't be much of a surprise. The robots probably will be, but let me go through them. Starting off with the militia, this might be the more common one to use and is best used by nations that have a lower industry. You don't have to start off with a full stack, but I do advise that as you can, fill every single slot up with militia and then add on some dogs for a nice little boost. The way garrisons work in HOI4 is that you don't always have to use a full unit. You can use up to 2 decimal places. So with low industry, you might not always need all 15 dogs. If it's a 0.01, you might end up only using 3 of the required. So just because this template is so big doesn't mean you will actually need to supply all this manpower and equipment to it, but by making it so big, your suppression stat, which is the only thing you care about with these templates, will be as high as it possibly can. Then the next one, and probably the most loved, is the enforcers. Again, you'll start off with 4 units, and I suggest you grow it as high as possible and add on some dogs. With a suppression of 50.9, this is using the first level of intermediate gear for all these templates that I'm showing you. This template will give you by far the highest suppression bonus, but as I said, with going up to 2 decimal places, you may not have to use all this equipment on every state all the time. Now there is a third option of garrison units I want to show you, and that is the robot garrison unit. This is here because you will end up with nations that have very low manpower, but you still need to provide a garrison for all the lands that you conquered. This has the lowest manpower requirement. Obviously the suppression is quite a lot less, and you must use the protectrons as they are the only support robots that actually give you any suppression bonus at all. The dogs are optional, but really this will be at least something if you have very low manpower but a very good industry to bring down your resistance so that you can core your states. I'm sure you know about all this already, but I'm going to go through it already. Your garrison laws do affect how things go. So the standard is caravan guards use the standard amount of manpower, and your resistance will go down by 45% and your compliance go up by 40%. By changing different laws, you can either use less manpower, but then your bonuses or your stats for your resistance and compliance will decrease, or you can use up to double the manpower and it affect things differently. The best one that most people like to use is Wasteland pacification, purely because it drops your resistance a lot faster and it has the highest amount of compliance gain. So that's just something for you to think about. Now, for those of you that have made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you very, very much. let me reward you with some bonus tips. So I have two sets of bonus tips that I want to share with you. The first one is about research and what research you can do to better your templates. And the first real one to go through is which is best, laser, ballistic, or melee weaponry. Now, melee weaponry is by far the cheapest with the best breakthrough, but personally I'm not a fan of it and I don't think I've ever used it. Then the question comes down to whether to use ballistic or whether to use lasers. Well, it really comes down to a very small difference where the laser weaponry has better piercing and some other great stats, but the production cost does get a lot higher as you go. Additionally, as you get towards the end of your tree, the stats do balance out. So to answer the question, for me, it comes down to role playing. If I'm playing the Brotherhood, I am not going to be using ballistic weaponry. It just doesn't fit. But as NCR, ballistic weaponry would be the way to go. Now for support, again, it comes down to your choices between going ballistic and laser, and then either flamers or frag grenades. Flamers and frag grenades, better breakthrough, better soft attack. NMGs, very much the same as ballistic. They're quite similar as you go along, and it all comes down to your role playing. For your vehicles, if you can get tanks, always get tanks. What I suggest you do when it comes to choosing between your cars and the trucks is, in the beginning, don't choose. Get your salvage motorcycles first. They're the cheapest and you'll be able to flood your units the best. Then as you get late in the game, as I mentioned, salvage cars, more breakthrough, faster, trucks, more armor, better in defense. You can then choose what you really need to keep your game going forward. Very much the same for your support robots. Production cost is the same as I mentioned, but the Protectrons have better defense stats. So if you need to fight early on, these will help you out, and then as you carry on through your game, you can then decide which is better for you. Keep the defensive stats, which I suggest to boost your combat robots, or go all out and get as much breakthrough as you can. Obviously the CNC robots are always a must. One word of warning for the robot nations is these three perks over, or researchers over here, do give brilliant boosts to your organization and production costs and all that, but each of them lowers your recruitable population by 15%. So once you complete all three, your recruitable population will go down by half, which is something to really take notice of. So that's research tips covered. Now the next bunch of tips I have has to do with production, and it actually has nothing to do with the screen over here. The tips I want to give you is, as you get more arms workshops, have a look here at your logistics screen. Whatever is in red will take you do not have enough equipment of, and your units do not have supply. Now by mousing over it, it will tell you how many days it will take for the supply to get back into the green, and that is the production line you need to add that arms workshop onto. In this example, anti-tank weaponry is the longest. It will take 91 days, so this is where I would put that robot. Then as for when to change from a basic template to a more advanced one, when you are saving it, unfortunately I won't do it now because I haven't started my game, it will give you a list here that will tell you how much equipment you are short of. In addition, when you come here and you say select that one, change the template, go through to, let's just pick either which one, it will show you here if you have enough equipment. If this is red, do not change the template, rather wait a bit longer until you do. And there we go, template tutorial guide completed. I hope this has helped you in even a small way make better templates for your armies moving forward. If you enjoy the video, please consider subscribing to my channel for some more no-nonsense Fallout content. But other than that, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.